Hi everyone, my name's Lorenza and I'm going to explain in this video how I transfer a commercial pattern onto these cardboard patterns that I make. Now I go on and on that when I really love a pattern, I transfer it from the commercial pattern onto a card pattern. Now the reason I do this is because your commercial paper patterns can become quite tattered when you use them a lot. You're putting pins in them a lot. So if I really love a pattern, or if I'm doing a lot of alterations to it, I will trace it off onto paper, and then once I've got the fit right, I will then transfer it onto card. And then this lives in my wardrobe and I have a perfect card pattern there ready to go. But I had a few people asking me saying, can you show us how you transfer the commercial pattern onto the card? And I thought that is a really good question because I've sort of got my technique for how I do it. Now there are look, I'm going to say 3 different ways. There's probably 15 different ways you could do this, but I'm going to show you my way, and I've got a bunch of tools here I'll talk you through as well. So you can see here, this was a simplicity pattern I did 8292. This is not the example I'm going to do though. I will find another example, but you can see there how it's just a perfect copy of the sample. So it's got all the same notches, it's got the grain lines. I write on there exactly what the pattern is. I mean, for this one, I called it Yellow Princess Kate dress because the sleeves on it are the same as a dress that Princess Kate did wear to a tennis match. And that's just how I remember that pattern. But anyway, you can see here how I've done all the same kind of markings that is on the commercial pattern. So to do these markings, I will just take you through the tools that I use as well. I use a tailor's owl, or a stiletto. So it's like a point. You don't need this, you could just use a pencil or something pointy. I always have a black texter and a red texter because I draw my red straight grains and my markings and circle them in a red. You can see there, I like to put my reds and my straight grains, my center fronts all in red, and then the pattern in black. A tracing wheel, because this is one way that you can do it. And I use a pattern notch, which, just let me grab a piece of card and show you, that does the little notches in the pattern, but I'll show you that in detail. A pacer, like a ruler. I use these big chunky pattern weights, but any kind of pattern weight you can get your hand on. You will need sticky tape, and I use Scotch tape, or I think some people call it magic tape. It's sort of matte. It's not as destructive as your normal sticky tape. It also tears really well. And I'm going to show you why that's important, because I don't like wasting this tape because it is so expensive. I'm not sure if it is all over the world, but here in Australia, it's about $30 a roll. So they're the main things that you will need. You don't have to, but I would recommend these things if you want to transfer your patterns. I also then hang them on pattern hooks. So you'll see it's got that hole in it. And I do have a whole big rabbit hole punch. These are pretty expensive and fancy. You absolutely don't need to buy this. You can do any kind of hole in your pattern. And then your pattern hook. These are super cheap. I've got reels explaining where I buy this stuff from in Melbourne, Australia, but you can buy them on Amazon as well. They're on my Amazon storefront, but you hook them through like that, and then I hang them in my wardrobe. So that's sort of the whole process. Now let's go back. I'm going to show you how to make these. Not the whole process. That's everything you need. And now I'm going to show you how I do it. So let me just move everything out of the way. So obviously you need to cut a piece of cardboard that will be big enough for the pattern piece that you're transferring. And here is my pattern piece that I'm transferring there. And with card, when you get it off the roll, how will I show this here? When you get it off the roll, it always wants to curl up. It's super curly. What you do is you hold it onto the edge of the table, and you see I'm putting my hand here, and you pull it down the edge of the table. Now I'm not sure, maybe I can zoom out a bit and just show you a bit here. There we go, I've got it on an angle now. So see there, I'm holding my hand, I'm pulling it down and going like that. So you can just do that to each edge, and that will get the curl out of it. Okay, I'm back straightened now. So we'll take the pattern piece. And so I was saying there's a few different ways you could do it. You could put your pattern weight down like this, and you could use rulers. Sorry about that noise. You could use rulers and a pacer or a pencil, and you could go around and do your markings. And the other thing you could do is with a tracing wheel. By the way, these are not the 2 ways that they do it, but I want to show you these options. So you could use the pattern weight, go trace it around with a pencil to do the outside of the pattern, or you could use a tracing wheel. And I'll just cut off a piece of the card so I can show you what the tracing wheel does. So you could go with the tracing wheel, so keep your pattern weight on, and we could be pressing this along. Now this is how I was taught when I was studying. It's probably the proper way to do it. So I'll just zoom in and show you there that when you use these little spikes, perforate the cardboard. So see there, I'm hoping you can see those little holes through it. And then you can just cut along them or you can draw them in. I'm hoping you can see that. You can see the little perforations there. Look, this is a great way to do it. And this is how I was taught, but I just think it all takes a bit too much time. And often you can be like, hang on, did the line start there or did they stop there? So this is what I do. This is my cheats way. So I place the pattern, make sure it's going to fit on the card. And as I was saying before, I use sticky tape and I put the sticky tape just straight onto the pattern. And I do it just so the pattern sort of stays in place. So I'll just get a few bits of sticky tape. And I like to pull them apart, as I said. So they're just skinny parts of tape. And the reason why is because once I'm done cutting it, I do just get the, if there's any bits of tape there, I just wrap it around the pattern. So the less tape that's on the pattern, the better, I think. But really, you can use as much as you want. But I just like using skinny bits like that. So I just kind of secure the pattern where I need it to be. And I'm sure there's pattern making teachers rolling in their graves and horrified at what I'm doing here. But look, I don't have lots of time. I've got young kids. Time is, I wouldn't say it's money, but to me it's precious when your kids are young. And if I'm just wanting to copy a pattern, this is how I'm going to do it instead of using the tracing wheel and the proper way. Now, yes, I know this is slightly destructive to your pattern, but it's not really. You're just getting some bits of sticky tape on it. So what I do straight from there, once I'm pretty happy with how secure it is, look, I'm probably putting on a lot more than I usually would. But I'll make sure I do the corners. So you can see I've got sort of enough sticky tape on there to get a really good, gist of where that pattern is. Now, before I start cutting it out, I will do my marks. So I'm getting a red marker to do my notches. Let's go there, do my notches. And with the tailor's owl, the stiletto, I'm going to punch that straight through. So there you go, that's going through the card. Yes, it's going through the pattern. Now, I do sometimes use the tracing wheel for the straight grain, but what you can also do is just use the stiletto again and punch it through the top and the bottom of those triangles, because you only need obviously 2 points in order to make a straight line. You don't need any more than that. So once I've done the pattern, I can then put a ruler and match them up. So yes, you can use the tracing wheel, but then you have to hold the card in the light and see where it is. I just did the hand motion then, but you have to go like this. So I find it sometimes easier to just stab it with the stiletto in 2 spots and then I'll mark it with the red texto when I'm done. So let's see, we've done those notches there. And I know we're going to cut these out with the pattern notcher, but I just prefer, I draw them in red so it's really obvious where they are. So there's another mark there, punch that one through, and one more here. So I think that's all the marks. We've done the dart, the notches for the dart, the side seam dart, the underarm, not dart, sorry, side seam notch, underarm notch, the pivot point, whatever you want to call it, it's not a pivot point, the mark for the arm. I get these dots always confused. I never know what to call them. I did Google it and now I've forgotten. Anyway, we've got another notch here on the shoulder. So at this point, all those markings are transferred enough. Yes, I'm going to have to keep doing them on the card, but they're transferred enough for me to start cutting. So I'm going to start cutting now. I won't make you watch all this. I'll probably pause it and you can come back when I've cut it out. I will say as I'm cutting though, you can either cut right in, and I'll zoom in here so you can see. You can cut right in so you're cutting the sticky tape off and then that pattern will lift off. But what I tend to do as I'm first cutting it is I cut it so there's a little bit more of sticky tape on so the pattern doesn't move so much. So do your first, the bulk of your cuts, I leave a little bit of sticky tape there. And then as you're getting towards the end, you can cut it in much closer because you don't want the pattern moving when you first cut this out. So keep that sticky tape on for the first few bits and leave a few mil there so it stays in place. And then I think as you're doing your last few lines, see here, this corner, I'm just going to leave a few mils, not even a few, like half a mil. So I'll zoom back out. I've still got a fair bit to go, so I will keep going. So that is the pattern cut out, and it should just kind of lift off from now. And if you're that concerned with the sticky tape, you can go along and trim off little bits of it here if you're that worried. So yes, the most destructive part to this is that yes, there's some sticky tape on your pattern, but this isn't really damaging the pattern and I'm not going to take it off. I'll just leave it. So yeah, there's a few bits of sticky tape on the paper pattern, but you're kind of done with the paper pattern now, besides transferring the information onto the card. So let's see, now we're just going to draw everything in. So there was that bust point and dart, the end of the dart point. So I always put circles around so it's really obvious when you're transferring it to your fabric. And now I'll draw these lines down here to the dart. Now see how that dot there is quite obvious? That's good. That was our grain line. See, I find that a bit easier than a tracing wheel. So I'm just going to obviously line that up. I'll do a dot there just to show you. There's the other one. So super easy. Oops, my arrow. Look, you can write straight grain. Oh, now I'm going to worry I'm spelling incorrectly because you're all watching me, or I put SG a lot of the time. So that's our straight grain transferred, and I always keep the pattern piece kind of just here and make sure I'm absolutely marking everything off. Oh, you can see that side seam there didn't quite come through, but there is a little red mark there. So that's enough for me to know, well, that's where the notch goes. So now I'm just using my notching tool, and I'm going to put all those notches in. See, that one came through, so that's fine, but I'm obviously cutting it out with the pattern notcher now as well. There's the shoulder one. Then we had that arm marking there. So looking back at the pattern, I have transferred everything. We've got straight grain, we've got the dart, we've got all the notches. The last thing I need to do is just write all the information about the pattern. So I always use a black pen for this. I'm just going to put simp because that's short for simplicity back. And I always put how much obviously you need to cut. So cut 2 of fabric. This one also says cut 2 lining. I love circles on everything to do to sort of draw your attention. So you see straight away that's 2. I'll zoom in a bit. There, that's 2, and same as I love putting circles over these pattern markings as well. So simplicity, of course, let's put the pattern number. So it's 83228, and always write on here as well if you've done alterations. You know, alterations B, where I made the arm shorter or sleeve shorter or something like that. If you're not writing on here, put it at least on some notes that are with the pattern. I like to, do I have an example here? I often will cut out like another piece of paper and just punch a hole through it, and I'll put white paper on it and then write details. Let me get an example out of my wardrobe to show you. Here we go, here's an example. So I will write what the pattern is, and I hang this with the pattern. So there we go, Princess Kate dress in yellow, and I wrote on this one how much fabric you need for if I was doing the big sleeve or a normal sleeve, and I would often write on there anything else I did, like I did alterations with this, there's a toile in my cupboard or in my box, so everything I need to know about this pattern, because guarantee you're going to forget all this. So you can pop that on there with your card pattern. So the last thing I have to do on this pattern now is still put a hole in it. Now where you put the hole, you should try and put the hole in the place that is least detrimental to the pattern. I know that might sound silly, but I have found, look, I'll try and stay away from sort of delicate parts of the pattern. So in this instance, because the bulk of the pattern is kind of thicker and heavier, I would probably put the hole down here, but you also don't want it mucking up too many patterns, too many markings, sorry. But yeah, on bodices, I tend to like putting the hole down the bottom. Personal preference, some people might prefer to put it at the shoulder, but I feel like because the shoulder is a smaller piece of the pattern, it's just going to get battered around a bit more. So yeah, I'm going to put the hole there. And so then you'd put all your pattern pieces together. This one doesn't go with that, but I'm just showing you that you put them all together. You could put your instructions as well. Then you get that pattern hook. You pop it all on, and then you can just hang it in your wardrobe like that. So that is essentially how I copy a commercial pattern onto card. So like I said, you can use the tracing wheel, you could use rulers, your pattern weights, but my quick little way is using that scotch, that magic tape. I don't think it's too destructive to the pattern. Yes, I've got a little bit of sticky tape on my pattern, but I just find it's the quickest way, and I just feel like it's got less room for error there. So I remember the first time I did it, I thought, oh, this is a bit of a cheats way and I shouldn't be doing it like this. But then I just kept doing it because I couldn't believe the speed at which I could transfer a pattern. And I started to just transfer all my patterns I was wearing a lot and putting them in my wardrobe. So that, yeah, is how I got into doing it with sticky tape. And like I said, I'm sure pattern makers, and if you're studying, they would say, do not do that. You've got to use the tracing wheel, and you know, do the tracing, dots, holes, then they're there, you can see them. But I just think there's a little bit room for error, and you're just looking constantly for those little holes and trying to draw them in and trying to cut around them. So look, speed, time, all those things, it's great. So I hope you enjoyed that. That is how I transfer my commercial patterns onto card. If you've got any questions, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Bye.